Now it's my pleasure to present today's presenter, Todd Snelgrove. Todd is a global subject matter expert in value buying and selling. As a founding partner at Experts in Value, he helps companies drive value strategy from ideation to financial realization by making sure that value is created, calculated, communicated, and priced for. So with that, Todd, welcome.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you, Leverage Point, for putting these great sessions on. I follow all the other speakers and always get some great tidbits. So as Nick said, I want to talk about the value strategy and how I think we all know we need to quantify value, but how do you put that in practice so that it's even easier to get paid for that value? So I think there's 4 stages: creating a product or service that delivers customer value versus the next best alternative. There's always an alternative. Doing nothing is an alternative. It might not be the greatest alternative, but what value would that be? How do I quantify it using customer specific numbers? And one quick comment here, I get some people that will say, you can't quantify the value for our customer because all of our customers are different. And my response to that is, kind of you can. Value drivers, the value calculation for energy savings, reduced downtime, speed to market are all the same everywhere in the world. Kilowatts times this times that. The numbers you put into them might be different. It might be 10 cents for a kilowatt of energy in the US and 14 cents in Europe. I don't know. The numbers might be different. And if it has a big impact on the customer, it might be different, but the formula is the same. So having a structured tool and process to quantify it. And then in the sales process, how do you communicate it? What terms should you use and engage customers with it? And how do you price to get paid for that value? So I'll talk today about a term called total profit added. I'll explain it more in a minute, but it's really an evolution of total cost of ownership. Your customers need to be more profitable. That comes from, yes, cost reduction, but also from the revenue side. So people use the term, let's make sure we're using the right term. And the book you see here, which was just announced, is going to be a 2nd edition in mid next year. But, we need to talk about the value first for the customer, then the price is relative to there. And believe it or not, procurement cares about value, not just lowest price. So to start with, everybody that's listening has an offering, a solution, product, service, software. And you go to the market and you say, look, this is great, Mr. Customer, look how great this is. And the customer has 2 thoughts that they're thinking through. One is the ability to pay, ATP. And they say, Todd, that is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I'd love to have it. I don't have the money. I have no money, whatever reason, COVID, budget, whatever. So I'd love to buy it, but I can't. I would argue, and as my old boss would say, the CEO of a $10 billion company, that's a false statement. If you bring to me a business case that is believable, robust, and has a great payback, I will find the money. Again, we'll use an example that's, I would say, obvious, but if someone came to me today and I had no cash, but they could save me so much energy this year, well, I don't mind taking the energy budget and using that money to pay for the solution that I'm being offered. And you want to know, maybe we enter into a performance agreement which says when you deliver that value, the energy savings, I pay you out of it. So, there's interesting ways to expand the customer's ability to pay. Then there's willingness to pay. Todd, this is great, but I've got 5 other priorities that we're focusing on as a company. We're implementing ERP, a safety protocol, whatever it is. You're neat, but you're too low on my list. You haven't hit that threshold or incentivized me to change. Again, they might think upgrading their software to something is only worth X, but maybe if it's worth Y, they go, wow, it's easy to do and it's worth that much. Well, maybe you can reprioritize yourself on that list. And the last point here is, your offering is competing against non-competitors. A business is sitting there saying, we need to buy this year, or that this year, invest in this. But if somebody comes in from the outside and has a great offering, you could easily get bumped. And I think we've all seen that in our own companies where, we have authority to do something and somehow that's put on hold because something else has become a higher priority. Quantifying your value addresses these 2 issues. This is what I think one of the greatest parts of the research that I did. This is from me doing some work with Jim Anderson, and he's kind of the value merchant, we could say. But, we thought about, why do customers not realize the benefit of this value strategy? And there's a lot of benefits for it, profitability wise, customer satisfaction, etc. But when we broke it down, we said there's kind of two areas of focus. There's the ability to sell value, and there's the want to sell value. And I think a lot of companies look at the ability component, but they don't look at it as a culture change program. They look at it as a one-off silver bullet. So, have they taken the value strategy and put it in their value conceptualization process, new product development process, stopping at each gate and saying, what would this be worth? Will the customer pay for that? Well, if it's worth something that's monetizable, they are willing to pay for it. But too often I see too many companies building something, and hoping that the customers are willing to pay for that benefit. Is it part of your value selling process? I mean, whether you're using a CRM system or not, are you engaging customers early in the buying process to get them to think, hey, the next time I buy whatever your offering is, I need to think about this differently. It's not a commodity. There's more value there than I realized. So the time to have that education, that discussion is different, but it has to be part of your selling process. Do you have a value-based sales tool? Do you have a leverage point tool that everybody can use? I've seen so many companies that every division person has their own Excel spreadsheet. And I won't name names, but I've had the pleasure of working with some very large companies, top 100s of the world, and their Excel spreadsheets were wrong. Real quick example, they were confusing return of investment or return on investment. They're both ROI, but they're two different things. One is 400% or 100%, and the other one is, when do I pay for this? Break even. So they were transposing those two. And then another interesting point, when they calculated ROI, they never put the time frame. So I ask yourself the following question. I've heard from some people, the customer needs a hurdle rate of 100% ROI. And I said, I'm sure that's not what it is. Well, no, they told me. And I'm like, well, what if we give them a solution that's a 1% ROI? Well, that's nowhere close to 100. A 1% ROI every day is better than 100% ROI in 47 years. ROI without a time frame is actually irrelevant. So just you see the mistakes like this. And again, having a robust systematic process makes all the difference. Do you have the initial value selling training? And yes, using the software being one component of it, but do you believe it? Have you internalized it? Have you role played it? Have you really got good so that you can sit in front of customers and answer these questions? Ongoing, is your sales management constantly driving this, pushing people, challenging pricing, challenging marketing? We need things that are value. We need them differentiated. We need the differentiation to be something the customer is willing to pay for. Value coaching, these types of things. And then the last part here, the want to sell value, I think is where a lot of companies miss, but they need to look at this as a culture change program. And to do so, you need to make sure your sales compensation aligns with the behavior you want. If you have systems and processes and measurements to reward volume, and there's a process to cut the price by, we'll just say 5%, and you don't reward me for not cutting the price, and there's no way to guarantee value, one's easy, simple, and I get rewarded. The other one's takes more work, it's tougher, and I don't get rewarded, or not by much. Why would I do it? And I think we all know a 5% price cut in what you're selling to the average business that's publicly traded, that's half the profit. So again, rethinking that. Are you giving your clients value buying options? Sometimes I want to buy the car, I might want to lease the car, I might want to Uber, I don't know, but everybody can stand on stage and say, mine's better. Do you have a program that says, maybe we'll put some fee at risk here? It's not near as confusing and risky as people think. I don't have the time to get into that right now. Business culture. I mean, your CEO might say it, but then, every quarter is get any order, drop the price, pull demand forward. I was very lucky from a business culture. My old boss, the CEO, 100% behind this. Every investor day it was discussed as it was our differentiation to the market. It was in our annual report. There were awards around it. There was a lot of things. And then I wouldn't say finally, but customer culture. Are you out there getting customers to rethink the next time I buy company cars, laptops, cell phones, I need to rethink. There's all these other things to think about. The time to have that engagement and have them think differently is much earlier. And as I said earlier, to get any good culture change program to work, you need somebody to drive it. You need a person. And they keep the program fresh. They're the resource that people can call. I mean, any program like this that's a part-time project that gets pushed out and it's, a side responsibility has a tendency to die. I start every presentation making sure that we're using the right terms. Price, cost, and value do not mean the same thing. They all happen to be 5 letters, but that's it. Price is what you pay for something, $100. Cost would be the $100 plus the shipping cost, the receiving cost, and then also the operating cost. How much energy or ink or lubrication does it use or water? And then you get down to maybe cost per month. How long will it last? And values on the upside. And value is not a warm and fuzzy in my world and my thought process, but there are things that you can do that are value oriented, that are not cost based. Increasing a client's revenue by production throughput, helping a client get to market earlier. In some industries, that's huge. In the technology industry, it's huge. You know, if you can help them get to market before their competitors or to meet a certain shopping season, it's a big deal. So I think it's important when a customer says, you know, your prices are too high, and I don't want to sound cocky, but you say, are my costs too high or oh, well, what I meant was cost. Oh, our company measures how we can affect our clients' costs with these 87 value drivers and these 42 value areas. So these are our cost and value drivers. And as I say, I can be the highest price in the marketplace, but the lowest cost. Which one do you want to buy? And I can tell you a lot of procurement people smile because they say when they send out an RFP, or especially in today's world, you know, how will you reduce our cost? A lot of salespeople come down with basically price changes, terms and conditions around price. Feel confident, understand the difference and how you can affect them differently. A great visual, whether it's $10 or thousands or millions, there's always 2 options. You know, they both look the same. They have the same specification. They have the same, you know, functionality to our understanding. They look the same. They smell the same. So from a price perspective, I would buy the $10 one. It's 33% cheaper. And what my old company did, or what a lot of companies do, I think is a better way to put it, is we would send our sales force out to talk to clients and say, you know, I know I'm more expensive. I have a higher price, but mine will do this versus that. In the industrial world that I come from, mine will use less water, less ink, less lubricant, less energy. Part of that could be because of the product itself. Part of it could be, you know, hey, when you install it, do it this way, do this or do that. I don't, you know, how you get to that is a different discussion. But if I was talking to a very technical person and said this will use 27% less energy, they probably could get a feeling or a flavor of what that is. What we realize is the economic people don't know what those numbers are. They don't run in the factory. They don't live on the things that they're buying. So to start to put numbers to it, the one on the left using these ranges and these formulas will have a total impact of $87. The one on the right is only $57. Therefore, the one on the right is actually creating $30 more of a profit impact. Profit, not cost reduction, but profit impact. And what I ask brands in the marketplace is, you know, just think of your industry. I'm sure there's a price leader, a premium price person. And I'd say, you know, what do you call that business? And they'll say, well, it's the premium offering. I can tell you from a procurement perspective point of view, they hate the word premium. Premium is I'm paying more money for a logo on my shirt. It's not tough, hard-nosed business things. What I would like to be is that $5 is an investment. Invest $5 more, you have to buy a variation in one of these 2 things. And for that, it's going to return $30. That's a 600% return on investment. Oh, you think my calculation was a little high here, a little low there? Fine, we can change it. What I find is what customers can come back with are questions such as, how would you calculate that? Where have you done that before? What numbers are you using? What happens if you don't hit that number? These are all closing questions. So again, putting the numbers to your value drivers as a starting point is very important. The PRICEBERG. It's a great visual. Procurement people always come up and say, you know, I wish people would understand this. We know that price is only part of what we're buying, but it's what we can see, it's what we can measure. You mentioned the sales and marketing teams, all these other value drivers, downtime, uptime, ease of use, whatever those things are, but you don't put any numbers to them. If I can't put a number to them, I can't make the business decision. And those things that I can't see, don't know what they are, and don't know what the numbers are, worth more than that price difference. And another point here is that, you know, sometimes we're taught in sales training, you know, ask the customer what keeps you up at night, or what's the cost of this for you. And I've been told specifically is we don't know those numbers. You need to bring us some numbers. And again, industry benchmarks are great. Even a place to start helps. Because if the magnitude of value is so big, I'm not going to argue if energy is 8 cents or 10 cents. And again, it's the relative difference between the two options. So you don't need to be perfect with the numbers. The formulas need to make sense, but to start having that conversation that I've got a smaller PRICEBERG working with me, even though the price might look like it's bigger, the total PRICEBERG is smaller. So I mentioned earlier this evolution of total cost of ownership to total profit added. Now, TCO started in the IT world, back in the 80s. You're asking somebody to invest money in hardware at the time and some software, but it was going to make people faster. It was going to reduce mistakes. It was going to speed things up. So the IT world is used to having business cases, robust or not ones, that's a different story. But they were very focused on cost savings. So when I used to do some work and I would say, we want to help our customers be more profitable, that's by cost reduction, but all these other things. So it was actually a gentleman that runs a procurement association called Center for Advanced Procurement Studies. We were in the UK together at a conference, and I said, I want to buy and I want to sell based on who adds the most profit. And he said, hey, total profit added is actually a better mindset than total cost of ownership. Let me walk through an example. This will be from the industrial world, but equipment world. But real quickly, just so people know, this is applicable to other industries. So in the healthcare industry, total cost of care, variation of this. In the renewable energy, solar, wind, electric, that type of stuff, levelized cost of energy. So, the ID can be applied to numerous different industries with minor modifications. But let's walk through this. A company takes a bunch of parts and they put them together and they design something. They design a big tractor or a car or a laptop or a house or a building. And those engineers are sitting somewhere and they're saying, how long should that machine last? How easy can we manufacture it? If they're given no constraints, doesn't matter how much this machine costs us to build, they will make it so that it's the highest engineered, highest tolerances that exist. So all the blue things, they make a concerted effort to look at. But what if your solution, can make those costs go down? But what about time to market? In the pharmaceutical world, where you've got a 10-year patent, I believe it is, 6 months getting to market faster because of packaging or logistics, what is that worth? Maybe you add something to your customers that's building this big machine, the OEM, that helps them sell more of it at a higher price or sell more of it. Maybe you can make their machine shut down before it breaks up. Maybe you can make their machine use less energy. Going to the sales and marketing people of your customer and saying, hey, by you changing how you do something, look at the benefit to your customer. So somebody builds the machine and the cost and value are built into it. Then somebody buys the computer, the whatever they're buying, the office products. And this is the acquisition phase, procurement. The economic buyer is very involved here. And what I find in a lot of experience is that if I say total cost, and the customer might say, we measure total cost, I think it's a great time to say, that's interesting. What do you measure? And if they don't share that, or they won't, or they don't know, to be honest, or they figure it out differently for every time they buy something, which seems to be somewhat the norm, you say, here's all the areas we can affect. So, total cost of acquisition is not total cost of ownership, which is not total profit added. So I find a lot of companies say, we talk about value, it's, the minimum order quantity, the inventory, the return policy, the currency, the payment terms, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, who's paying for shipping. Location I have in green here because I just did a piece of work for a company that was competing, North American company competing and supplying to a North American customer versus that customer buying out of Asia. I was able to help them justify a 35% price difference and be cheaper. Not only just with the shipping costs and the tariffs, but the amount of inventory the customer had to keep, the risk that they were taking on, the currency conversion they were opening themselves up to. Again, we don't have time and effort to go through all that, but I mean, you can put numbers to these things. So company builds it, now a customer buys it. They're buying these things for their company to use, motors, gearboxes, company cars, whatever it is. And now these things go into use. They're installed, they're operated, they're maintained. Just didn't have the space to put that all on the slide. And of course, this will be different, but how much energy, how much water, how much ink, how much lubrication? You think about it. Product life, how long will this last? Am I amortizing this investment over 10 years or 20 years? Auxiliary repair cost. There are some industries where customers look at the machine price as the highest component. Well, there are people that will say, well, fine, I'll make it all up on my spares cost. And you have to buy my spares, for example. How easy is it to fix it? Again, production and quality are revenue drivers. Machine reliability, installation cost, taxation, warranty. Again, a longer list here. And one area that the research never looked at and I didn't think about much was disposal. You take something and you throw it away. Sometimes disposal costs can be the highest component or the most impactful driver here. I mean, maybe you have to take the stuff to a special place to be refined, or your computers, you just don't want to throw them into the garbage because there's data on there, or you need to pay someone to treat it to make it socially responsible or environmentally safe. Maybe you could refurbish what you've bought so it can be used again. Maybe you can sell it, i.e. a used car. The price of the car is not what matters. It's the difference between what I bought the car for and what I sell the car for that matters, plus or minus operational costs. So this is a great model. Take all those words, the value drivers off, and walk through the life of your product or service and see what you're really impacting. And what you find a lot of times is that the real drivers, the real value occurs in use. The acquisition, you might be the buying phase of it, but the real value that it creates happens when you're using it. And that's when a lot of the costs get incurred. So the question is, where can you get some data? So this is a great piece of research. It's amazing what you can find by just doing some good research work. But this is Accenture, and they're looking at 4 different types of assets. So aircraft, Boeing, Airbus, Class 8 trucks or big 18-wheelers, industrial equipment, fans, gearboxes, motors, and light-duty pickup trucks. This would be for a work environment. You could also do it for personal buy, but the research is based on a work environment. And they looked at when you're going to buy something, what percent of its total cost is what they were looking at the time. Does it really affect? So if you're to buy an airplane, that only represents 8% of the cost. 92% of the cost will be in use. The financing cost, the fuel cost, the people cost, the repair cost. That's why when fuel prices were really high, it seems like so long ago, a lot of the fleets would take their older, less efficient planes. It was cheaper for them to put them in the desert and not fly them when oil was so high. An example I use in the industrial equipment example, which is relevant everywhere, is, I would say to my colleagues on the buying side or to customers we're selling to, you want to know what? I think it's better to buy the one that's 10% higher price, but has 2% lower cost. And I remember people saying, Todd, I don't know what math they teach you in Canada, but 10% is 5 times bigger than 2%. I said, yeah, that's the thing with percent. You need a denominator. 10% of 12 is really only an increase of 1.2%. A 2% reduction of that real big number, that 88, is 1.76. A 2% reduction in that case is worth about 44 to 46% more value than a 10% price increase. So again, having the research, the ability to communicate that to your customers and say, these are all the costs and benefits and what we think we can affect them, and giving them the business case to justify buying something that's, for example, 10% higher in initial price. The buying process. I've been very lucky to work with this gentleman named Rob McGuire, Scottish gentleman, lives in the UK. And he is a procurement expert. He used to buy from the company I used to sell for. But he goes, Todd, the problem is you don't understand how I buy. And he drew this on the board one day, and I was just like, wow, I was taking a picture of it. And he goes, we'll make a slide. But he goes, this is the buying process. And needs identified. And I'm just going to use a personal example. It's 100% business similar, but a need's been identified. I need a car. My other car broke. The lease came off the car. My kids got older. Whatever reason, a need has been identified. I need a vehicle. Now I'm going to sit and, based on my preconceived notions, what I believe to think of what I want, I'm going to say, what type of vehicle do I want? I want a gas vehicle, not an electric. I want 4 doors, not 2 doors. Now, some of these might be rational. Some of them might not be. Real quickly, growing up, had a diesel car, had a chance to pick a car, and diesel was an option. And right away I said, not a chance, because back in 1980 something, they were hard to start. You couldn't find diesel. So I was making a lot of preconceived notions of what I wanted, which narrows the opportunity. So car, I decided I don't want gas. I mean, I want gas, I don't want electric. Then I look and say, well, who should I even talk to? Again, based on the example, I wouldn't talk to Tesla because I said I don't want an electric car. And then I might say I don't like that car brand because I've had a bad experience. But these three brands kind of meet my requirements. And then I would, ask them to bid or price me on what I want. They would then do a bunch of work and send them to me. Here's my offer. I would then negotiate price, terms, conditions, etc. I would choose one and buy from them. And then, contract performance. Am I happy with what I just bought or not? If you were to take this and put this on the buying cycle for your clients, whether they're buying a product or service, it follows the same logic. We need office supplies because we do. What do I need? I need, computers are dealt with separately. You get the idea. But his point was your ability to change what I measure, how I measure, and what I think about dramatically decreases over time. If you're engaging me at the RFQ, RFI stage to say, Todd, you really should be thinking about electric because they actually are lower cost over time, or you should be thinking about diesel. Now you're challenging me who I am, what I thought I wanted. You better be really, really good at making me rethink this. What you've got to do is get to me much early in the buying process to get me to rethink. I never thought of that. Maybe I should look at that. Maybe that's a wider framework to work through. And that is not just marketing's responsibility. This is why the white papers and the academic and the positioning, so that when people come into the funnel to actually buy, I need this stuff, they might be thinking differently. You'll see the slides later. We don't have time to go through all the specific details, but this is a great study by Gartner doing research. And they said, their research showed that 7% of the buying journey is just independent online research. And I find myself doing that. What is best car? What is best trip? Whatever. You've done that online research. Then they meet the internal stakeholders. Who's going to use what's being bought? Who do they like? What do they want to buy? What's important to them? What trade-offs are they willing to make? These types of things. Researching independently offline, my assumption is calling colleagues or associations they belong to. Hey, we've got to buy, insert what it is. What have you guys done? What worked? What should I be aware of? Who should I stay away from? Other, I don't know what other is, but whatever, 16% is doing other, but only 17% of the buying journey is actually meeting with you. 83% of the time you're not involved. So how are you going to change how I think of what's important to me and what my weighted measurements are within 17%? Again, early, wider, when I say academic, informational, whether it's webinars or little videos or something that make you rethink. I love this lady. We did a conference in the UK, gosh, a long time ago. She's now the Chartered Institute of Procurement. At the time she was with AstraZeneca, but suppliers don't come to us with a business case. It's what we want. Sell your value using our numbers. And my favorite line, and you can all see it because a lot of people say, well, we can't quantify what we do. It's impossible. Yes, you can. But if you can't quantify your value, don't be surprised at the failure of procurement to do so. I have a lot of procurement friends. They say, you have no idea of the responsibility of what I need to buy. I'm buying raw goods. I'm buying finished goods. I'm buying services. I am not and never will be an expert on insert what you deal with. If you can't help me understand why I shouldn't buy in the lowest price that meets the minimum criteria, then I don't have the time or effort to do your job. We won't go through all this. I know it's a very busy slide, but I use this with procurement people that says people that buy on best total profit added are more profitable. This is not a sales pitch. Well, it might be, but I believe buyers and sellers are more profitable by focusing on value. So real quickly, my favorite piece of research is from a group called MAPI, Manufacturers Alliance for Productivity and Innovation. I was doing a conference for them for their chief procurement officers. And the research, 2013, found that companies that had a structured methodology to buy on best value were 35% more profitable. Wow. And the things that were asked of them, what do you measure? If you remember that 4-stage slide, those were just listed all the way down, and people checked off, do you measure refurbishment costs? Can it be remanufactured? Does it affect downtime? And, what a huge impact. The vested outsourcing was that orange colored book, is a piece of research based on Nobel Economic Prize winners. Kate Vidisek from University of Tennessee Supply Chain School. I've got a chance to do some work with her. And then finally, the one at the bottom there, which is from SAMA, Strategic Account Management Association, and what's now called World Commerce and Contracting Association, found that, companies realize 40% more value from the most collaborative suppliers. And funny enough, salespeople felt they delivered 49% more value. So I do use that with customers. I mean, my people are going to go where they feel rewarded, where they get more of the business. If everything is 3 bids and a buy, they're not going to get access to our best people, our newest ideas. And the middle quote, right in the middle, this is a professor, Thomas Choi, from Arizona State, but Center for Advanced Procurement Studies, that had that quote. You can see other ones there. So this is right for procurement. And again, in the book, I think there's 5 procurement people that write, how do I want to buy? Pricing. You can set the price. We've talked about getting the price, but what are some of the different models? We have cost-based. I know that my cost to in-house, et cetera, is X. I'm going to mark that up by X, or I want a margin of Y. Same concept. Competition-based. I believe that I'm better. The market has shown me that they're willing to pay 10% more than somebody else. Again, the issue here is I'm getting my feedback maybe from people that are incentivized by giving me wrong information, just as an FYI. Value-based, and I think this is really interesting. This is from Professor Andreas Hinterhuber, who I wrote the book with, but there's kind of value-based and performance-based. And at the very bottom of the diagram, you can see payment, X and post. X, before. Value-based selling is, I think by you buying this for me, it should deliver this value for you, this profit added for you. And we don't need, that's based on a customized business case, just that type of a thought process. But then the customer's buying it. They might get more value than expected, the same amount or less, but they're taking all the risk reward. Then there's performance-based, which also has outcome-based, which is a whole other discussion, which says, pay me some money up front, but if it does this, I pay you then. So it's based on what actually happens. And as you can see, value-based and performance-based are the top right quadrant. Very interesting, but variable pricing. Demand-based pricing, time of year pricing, days of the week pricing, how people buy pricing. Movie theaters as an example. It's not dynamic. It's more expensive on a weekend and it's cheaper on a Tuesday. So they've just made some generic statements that way. Or dynamic, the whole Uber live pricing. But, pricing can be used to get your clients to behave in ways that are more beneficial to them and to yourselves, and to really reinforce your value proposition. So some of the things that I find that a lot of companies do that actually hurt their value pricing are the following. This is from behavioral economics. It's from B2C world, but I find big B2B companies, doing the same problems. We believe that by giving customers more choice, they'll be happier. And I've seen technical specifications or offerings that are 50 columns wide. You couldn't figure out what the offering was. People are very attracted to big choice. They get very excited, but it's called the paradox of choice. They become unable to make a choice because there's too many. Buyer's remorse sets in. So this study was done. It's been replicated numerous times saying, give choice, but not too much. So when you're making an offering, never give 50. Give a few. We'll talk about the right number in a second, but it confuses people. And if anybody's been to a cheesecake factory, as an example, these menus that are huge, the only way to kind of minimize it is they've got them bucketed pretty well. Do you want dinner or breakfast? Okay, Todd, if you can't figure out that, we're gonna have a bigger problem. But I do find it frustrating sometimes. And what you find, if you're the incumbent, it's good because people won't choose to leave because of the choice model. Give choice, not too much. But when you give choice, how many options should you give? And there's industrial examples of this in B2B, but I think everybody's been there. You've gone somewhere and you're given 2 choices. We'll say it's for dinner or it's wine. If I'm given 2 choices, I will probably do a subconscious value analysis. you know, it's a special occasion. I got a raise. I'm with some people I like. I want to spend the $30. Or you want to know, 30 is too much. The $10 one's good enough. We don't need that. And you find that people do this. It's called the shed lock debate in their mind. Which lock should I buy, the $10 one or the $30 one? Well, what am I trying to protect in the shed? Do I really need it? And you'll find that in a lot of industries, 80% of the people will choose the lower priced option. And what you find people do then is salespeople will say, if 80% want the $10 one, imagine how much more we'd get if we offered an $8 one or whatever it is. What you do is you cannibalize your own people and they move down the value chain. So 2 choices, not good. 3 choices are better. Now, the third choice in this example, which is the linear effect, people don't buy in general. So a $10, 30, and a $50 one. People will be drawn to the $50 one, the fancy name, etc. $50? Ooh, that'd be great. Nick, should we do the $50 one? No, you want to know what? Okay, $30 one's good enough. By creating a higher one, the next most reasonable one becomes what you choose. If anybody's bought a new car and you walk into the showroom, they don't put the $10 car in the showroom. They probably don't put the $30 car in the showroom. It's all the $50 cars with every bell and whistle. And you walk up there and you go, wow, look at that. Oh, look at all that stuff. And then the salesperson talks and you said, yeah, I wasn't planning on dropping $150,000 on a car today. Oh, but you like it. Yes. We have one that's only $99,000, but it only has 28 speakers, not 500. It's got these types of brakes versus those. It's, oh, you want to know what? That'll be fine for me. When did the $100,000 car become a good deal? When I put it against the $150,000 one. Create a higher value offering, put services bundled in with it. This product includes OpEx costs, the ink bundled in for 3 years, rush shipping and installation, and 5 hours of technical support. People go, wow, if they buy it, you're rich. If not, you want to know what? Just buying the naked version might be a great deal. Similar, the decoy effect. Again, you're given a $3 one and a $7 one. You'll sit there and make a choice. Have we gone for dinner? Are we going for dinner? Do I have the family? Whatever you'll do. In this case, what I've done is created the middle one as the false decoy. And what you find, again, is, well, $3, and assume the size of the popcorn is linear to the price, the 3 and 7. Well, wait, for 50 cents more, might as well buy that one. Your margin will be through the roof on the $6.50 one. It's not designed to sell. It's designed to make the $7 one look more attractive. Now, what I've had some VP of finance say, well, we don't sell any of the $6.50. Let's get rid of it. No. Or our margins triple on the $6.50. Let's sell more of those. I wish we could, but it's designed there to make the $7 one be perceived as better value. I put in services because I think it's something that we all do. You know, I'm going to give you so many services, so many on-site calls, so many reports. Expand your thinking here. But, you know, if you only want 1 per week, it's 129. 2 a week, 154. I'd probably buy the 2 here. You want to know what? You know, the marginal cost, double the amount for that much more. But you want to know what? Unlimited goes to that. There's no way I wouldn't move all the way up. And again, unlimited might be 10. I don't know. You might have been giving away this stuff for free to begin with. So visits. The next one is length of contract. You know, you want, again, in business to business, it might be a 1-year contract, but let's just follow this one here, month to month, 179. You sign a 6-month contract, 169. I have a good suspicion I would probably choose the 179. The savings of $10 a month, which is $60 over 6 months, the risk reward and my initial mindset didn't attract me to it. But now that I can go to a year for $99, what you're trying to do is get people to buy the 12-month contract. The other 2 are created just to make that one look good. And some people might be sitting, but I make more money if somebody came for 4 months or 6 months at the 179. Those didn't exist. Those were created to make the $99 one look better. So again, plenty of examples. We can't go through them all now, but summarizing best practices in selling and pricing, it starts with value quantification. What is the value? Maybe it's you sitting at home or at the office saying, we think it's this. Maybe it's you getting customer specific numbers, but having the business case. So it's an investment. Be early, challenge the customers. Is it price, quality, delivery? Or is it operational costs, reliability, installation, OpEx cost, these other things? Do that early. Create, your bundling pricing and your naked pricing. Have all those different options, bundle them together, the higher value one. Service as a subscription, we talk product as a service, but I mean, choose, I want so many services from you over the period of the year, and I'll pay you one fee for that. We've got into selling and pricing on outcomes, not activities. I mean, the old way is I'm going to charge you by the hour, by the visit. No, I'm going to pay you money to complete a task. Think if you're using an accountant or a lawyer as one example, or design engineer, here's the fee. I mean, if you can do it 1 hour, that's amazing, but I'm going to pay you for the result of it. And I might even keep some of the fee back to make sure it actually works like you said it was going to work. But I paid by the activity way too often and not got the result that I expected or the outcome that I wanted. Discriminate based on the customer's behavior. You find that, giving surcharges or penalties upsets customers. Rewarding them from the behavior you want makes them happier. So sometimes you have to increase your price and then say, but if you pay me on time, there's a discount. If you buy 3 options versus 2, if you give me a longer lead time, all these types of things. Choice. I mean, hopefully the 2 examples resonates. 2 choices doesn't work. People will rationally justify that the good enough one is what they need. I find a lot of companies say, yeah, but my price might be higher, but I'm giving you all this free services. When you're giving me something for free, the tangible value of that is just not there. Now, if there's a fee version of it, then I can understand. And I'll make one comment here because I think it's something important. People will look and say, we have to give away, let's just say, engineering support for free. And I know that the best way that we've gotten around this is to say, no, engineering support isn't free. The 1 hour phone call to a tier 1 engineer is free. A 3-day on-site investigation by a degree, blah, 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 is for a fee. So don't get stuck in, training is free or engineering support is free. There needs to be maybe a free option and then a fee option or offering. And again, they can be different, more advanced, quicker. Another thing that I find is that small regular price increases over time are much better. And if you can get an evergreen contract, this contract is 3 years. It will continue on after that. It will increase in price by whatever, inflation, whatever it is, every year. What my procurement friend said is, I like when contracts end, it gives me power again. If your contract just automatically renews, I'll probably look at it and say, you want to know what? I don't have the time or effort to rebid that, sir. I got other urgencies right now. I'm forced to rebid it because the contract ended. Now, guess who gets power in the relationship again? Now I can go out, commoditize you, try to get 3 bids and a buy. So, this is my variation, but I'm sure other much smarter people have said it before. Align your sales and pricing model to align with how your customers make money. If they make money on flying airline miles, then you charge based on the airline mile flown. They make money on them selling more of the machines because yours is better. You help them make a better machine. Have your pricing model tied in that way. I put this as a simple slide. We'll call it for a value pricing process. Looking at what do we sell, what products, what services, software, etc. And then comparing that to the next best alternative. Sorry for the Americans. My kid thinks it's the NBA, but here's what we sell. What's the alternative? Doing nothing, this competitor. And, sitting down and measuring that, putting a hard measurable dollar to it. That's why people like leverage point exists. The internal competitor, the external competitor, but by doing this is the financial impact. Then thinking through what pricing models, the value-based, the performance-based, the outcome-based. Then choosing your prices, having a list price to start from, knowing what your costs are after you figure out what the value is, and then doing things, based on volume or channel to market or how the customer buys, forward buying, length of contract, having all those options, and then getting into, I've got 2 options or 3 options, a naked stripped down, no services, no phone call, nothing. You want a discount, Mr. Customer? We can give you the 5% discount, but don't pick up the phone and call us because we'll charge you $200 an hour. Well, if I call you so many times, it'll end up costing me more. You want to know what? Give me the offer that includes that, includes those bundles, and then having some contract best practices. So, everybody talks about value, but are you as a company willing to stand behind it? There are performance-based, 100% outcome-based agreements, risk reward. I find people are very drawn to them. Most people don't like them. They don't buy them. There's too many variables to measure. There's legal things. There's all these things. But there's a third option that I think is much more palatable to both sides. Fee at risk. Fine, I'm 10% higher than my competitors. Pay me the 90%, and I'll put that percentage of fee at risk. Actually, best practice is pay me my fee, and I guarantee value of whatever, 10%. If not, I write you the check. I spend my whole life trying to show procurement people that that's a better deal than a 10% price reduction. And there's a process, of course, with doing that. And my old boss, who's since retired, but how many different ways in our company do we have to cut a price? It's volume, it's new market, it's competitor, it's Friday, it's a big order. You figure it out. Very creative. But how many ways do I have to guarantee my customers? No, I'm not going to drop the price 10%, but I'm going to guarantee you 10% value. And with that, you're actually bringing yourself no risk. If you're willing to go from $100 to $90 to get the order, then there's no risk of saying, no, I am $100 and I put $10 at risk. Again, we can have that discussion in much more detail. And I think this is important. Having the meat behind being able to quantify your value is so important. It gives you the logic. It's a fact-based argument. It's reasonable and it makes sense. And it also, I think one neat thing is that it looks professional. It's not somebody's hand-drawn things in an Excel spreadsheet that has spelling mistakes or, that ROI example I made beforehand. But, it's logical to the customer. This will use less energy. Okay, I understand. One thing I find that sales teams don't get is the training to really sell that message, to have the passion around it. Corporate might say, here's some slides, and people regurgitating stories, but do they have their own stories that are relevant to this customer segment? Can they make them feel it? And I've had customers say, Todd, we're buying your belief in this. Again, it's coming across your passion. And then again, do you have the credibility? Is your company making these statements? Is the statements on your website? Does it really believe that it's there? Or is it one salesperson just saying, value? So, I focus on understanding what value is in the calculations, work with people to tie that into the tool, the leverage point tool they have or should have, helping them with the marketing. What does this look like? How do I present it with, the white papers, the one-page sheets, the videos? They're really trying to get that mindset difference out there. A lot of training on, how do you engage the economic buyer? How do you play with the numbers? How do you calculate risk? What is cash flow break even? When the customer challenges you that these are just assumptions, how do you respond? How do you role play? And then again, into specific pricing areas of, what would that look like? What would that offering be? How do we minimize risk? How do we go to outcome-based to performance-based? It's easy to do, and our customers would understand and be willing and interested to buy it. So just a little bit of flavor there. And I think we're getting to the end here, Nick. So, the companies that do this are more profitable. And of course, I'm not going through all this, but real quickly, academic people have said, from a sales and marketing, Kellogg, if you can do this, it's best practice by far. Pricing, London Business School, and Assad should be up there. People that price this way. IMD is a big Swiss school, but they have a big procurement program, and the professors have me come speak. This is the way we need to procure. University of Tennessee, this is the way we need to procure. So there's a lot of examples academically. These are procurement associations over my last 20 years that have actually paid for me to come talk to them about how to buy value, how to realize value. And I can tell you right now, the slide deck is not that much different. So people think that I'm telling you a different story to sellers and buyers. There's a lot of similarities. But the first one here is National Institute of Government Procurement. It's global, but very North American. This one was Asia, PASIA. I'm not going through all of them, but IB Core was Brazil, LOGI was Finland, IACCM is global. My point being, this is not a North American or Canadian idea. It's global. Numerous governments have changed their rules of buying that say you have to buy best value. You just need to list what value is. We'll measure operating costs, we'll measure time to market, we'll measure inventory costs, whatever. And then a bunch of consultants that have said, hey, once you know what you're spending your stuff on, maybe you should figure out how to extract value from those key suppliers. So that's me. I think the website's got a bunch of videos and white papers and a bunch of stuff there. You know, even at half the price, I can be twice the cost. You know, LinkedIn, I try to post some things once in a while and feel free to reach out. I know Nick's ready to take us through some slides now and get us to some Q&A, and love to answer anything that pops up in your mind.
Great, thanks Todd for sharing all of your insights. So we had a few questions coming during the webinar, and there's still time. And remember, we're wrapping off a copy of Todd's book, First Value Then Price, after the session. So make sure you fill out the survey. So really quick word about leverage points. So, Todd just explored all the ways that a strong value pricing and quantification strategy is key to engaging in successful value selling conversations. And here at Leverage Point, that's what we're all about. We offer a SaaS solution that creates interactive digital value propositions that help sales teams convey this value messaging in a more powerful customer-specific way. And this is really important because, as Todd said, you want to be getting to value early in these sales conversations. But it's also important to maintain that throughout the buying process. So as you get towards the middle of the sales process, it becomes a consultative selling tool to address pre-sales challenges. And then as you move to the purchase stage, it really becomes a unique business case to buy that's customized using the customer's real data. So Leverage Point is a SaaS tool. It links directly to an opportunity in Salesforce and can also be downloaded as a PowerPoint or PDF as a personalized leave behind. And our clients tend to see higher close rates, 5 to 15%, as well as 5 to 25% higher prices when using Leverage Point value propositions. So if you're interested in it, leave us a note in the post-webinar survey and we'll set you up with a custom demo. Now for some Q&A, Todd, you ready?
You got it, my friend.
All right, so how about this one? What are some common objections that you hear for people trying to switch to a performance-based model? And I'll just say maybe from leadership as well as buyers.
Yeah, so from the sell side, a few examples is, where we get measured the street, the shareholders expect sales dollars, number of pieces of equipment sold. I can't take that into a performance-based that's split out over time. Now, my answer to that is like there's 5 different ways you can do that. One, there are numerous banks that would be more than glad to buy stuff and then finance it to the customer. So you would get that capital equipment sale and you could put that revenue immediately, plus get a little bit of performance based over time. Number one. Number two, you would never take your whole business model and the next day turn it over to performance based. Choose a market, choose an industry, start. If you're able to use, move 1% of your clients a year, I mean, that would probably be phenomenal. You're not doing performance-based pricing with your customers below a certain size, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, choose them like you would launch a product. Let's try this here, here, and here. And I think it's also great for incremental sales. And I used to tell my colleagues, you want to know what? There are those customers in, we'll just say Latin America as an example, when I'm coming to visit, that always have talked about price. We've never been able to get the order. So going in and having the same messaging, we're better, we're faster, we're easier, isn't going to change how they think. Going in with a different business model, so you now have nothing at risk. We never had this customer. We've got them excited on a performance-based. That would be a place to start.
Great. So we've got a few on procurement. So how about this one? I think this one touches on a few of the ones I'm seeing. How do you steer a procurement conversation towards value and away from cost reduction?
Well, I think a few things. One, and I didn't make this clear, but you've got purchasing and procurement, and I don't think it's semantics. A lot of times salespeople talk to purchasing. They're the ones that might write the PO. Procurement's more at the senior level. The chief procurement officer that reports to the CEO type stuff. So, sometimes I get to the purchasing people and they say, we're measured on this. I'm measured on, last year's price versus this year's price. I mean, on this index, whatever it is. I'm not saying we've never lost, but when I said, if I can guarantee you a profit improvement, would that count? Let me check. And never we then said, well, that won't count as long as it's hard value. I think to get customers to change, those statistics, people that buy on best profit delivered are more profitable than people that buy on lowest price that meets the requirement. 35%. Isn't that worth the effort? Now, what tool will you use to measure it? What numbers will we use? What happens if you don't hit it? Okay, now we're into that implementation conversation. But I can tell you that all the procurement conferences I go to, they invite me for one reason. How do we extract value from our suppliers? And I tell them basically what I've been talking to you about is, make them measure it, but then reward them for it and those types of things.
Great. This is an interesting one. So how do I manage a shift towards value when it means I'll be increasing prices on some long-time customers?
Yep. And just 1 second here. I think the important thing, especially in today's world with purchasing, be proactive. So some people that are in the industry will say, 6 months ago we were talking and they said, we feel if we don't discuss price, somehow it'll be below the waterline and nobody will bring it up. And every one of them has called me in the last 2 months ago, oh, we were wrong. And they kind of laughed because they knew it. They said, guess what? Every week I'm getting the letter from my customer. Times are tough. We need you to find a way to reduce our cost. So, hiding from it's not a good answer. Being proactive. I know one client that I work with, they're actually proactively going to their customers and saying, you must be under intense pressure to prove your value, to become more profitable, to reduce cost. Let's discuss how we can help you do that. Design re-engineering, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that proactive component to it. Does that answer the last question, Nick? Sorry if I went off on a tangent there.
No, I think it does. I think we have time for one more. So this might be a good place to close it. So what characteristics distinguish companies that price on value versus those who think that they do?
That's a good question. I mean, one thing you would look at is their profitability versus their direct competitors. And the most robust piece of research I've seen was done by Monitor, which is now part of Deloitte in their pricing commercial excellence group. But companies that are in the same industry, so industrial or high tech, whatever. So we're comparing apples to apples. They looked at companies and they put them into 4 different buckets. And I don't remember how they chose them specifically, but do they take the value approach and are they good at it? Or do they take the value approach and are bad at it? If you're good at value, you're 20%, 24% more profitable than the industry average. If you took the value approach and you were not good at it, you were still 6% more profitable. Then did you take the volume approach? And again, in this case, they were 12% less profitable. So I would look at the profitability of it. I would then start asking questions like, what percentage of your sales are discounted or deviated? Do you have a program around guaranteed value, fee at risk, some sort of these types of things? And, what price premium are you getting versus your competitors? And if it's 2%, 3%, what the academics, Jim Anderson calls this is tiebreaker selling. We're all the same, but I added a little function here or there. Or are you getting 15 or 20% consistently over your competitors? And again, different industries, different percentages. But I would start with, how profitable are you? And then one example is when you're launching new products, how do you price them? Look at your new product development process. Are you tying in the value messaging along the way? For us, we started to check the successfulness of our product launches.
Great.
Sales and profit. I mean, not having to reprice and do all these things afterwards.
Yeah, and that's something we talk a lot about here at Leverage Point is introducing value early on, whether it's during the sales process or during the product development process. So I think that's consistently a best practice. So that does it for us today. Just a quick note, next month, we're going to be holding our last webinar of the year. It's going to be featuring our own Brian Hannon, and we're going to be talking about B2B sales trends in 2020, and we're going to be taking a value-based twist on this. So we're going to talk about the role value plays in some of the biggest sales trends happening currently. So this should be a really fun one, so make sure you sign up in the post-webinar survey, and we look forward to seeing you there. And so that's it for us today. So I just want to thank Todd for joining us and sharing his insights. And from all of us here at Leverage Point, have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.